this is one of the biggest challenges that women have, and one of the biggest questions they come to us with, one of the most common things. And so we're going to dive right into secrets to meeting men. And I think you're going to give us, to start out, 3 tips for meeting men organically.
Yeah, well, so before I jump into the 3 tips to meeting men organically, I just first want to give like an umbrella overview of, because it's the number one question you and I get asked all the time is, how do I meet men? Where do I meet quality men? And basically, honestly, there's 2 options, is to either meet men organically or to meet them online. And smart women will do both. But sometimes I'll hear women that say, I don't want to do online dating, and so they just want to meet men organically. So I thought I'd break it down into 3 tips for meeting men organically, and then also 3 tips for meeting men online, so that it could help women, whichever path you choose to go down. I think that this will help you.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds really great.
So what I always tell women is that if you truly want to meet a man organically, is, I know this sounds obvious, but you have to go out there and meet men organically, because I think sometimes people think, well, it'll just happen. If I just go out, men are just going to flock to me and start, starting a conversation. But you got to get out, put yourself out there. And what I say, always just talk to everybody and anybody, because it opens up your energy and it stops closing you off from everybody. Because I think in this day and age, I feel like everybody kind of has walls up and they kind of just go about their routine and they don't get outside their routine. And so it's about really every day just getting out there, smiling and making eye contact with everybody and anybody. I'm not just saying men. And the reason why I say everybody is because it opens up your energy.
Yeah, and that's such a good point that you're bringing up, Suzanne, because I think, first of all, you mentioned a couple of really key things there. One is we all get into our routines and we tend to go to the same places, see the same people, do the same things every day. So breaking out of your routine, that's part of what you're talking about. And then not being so preoccupied or in our phones or totally oblivious to who and what is going on around us. You mentioned some things here that are just so key. And then engaging with people, having conversations with people, connecting with people. You never know who someone knows or who they're friends with or who they might introduce you to.
Exactly. And it's funny that you mentioned that about the phones, because that's actually my second tip in
Okay.
meeting men organically. And it's to put away the technology, put away your phone, your iPad, take your earphones out of your ears, because those are all barriers to meeting someone organically. Because it's just like, here's my phone. Do I look like I really want to meet somebody if I'm like this? Or do I look like I want to meet someone if I'm like this? Right?
Yeah.
So it's important to really put away the technology. And for those in your audience that don't know, I've worked with both men and women, and in coaching both men and women. And men have actually told me that when a woman is on her phone or on her iPad or she has earphones on, they take it as that she doesn't want to be bothered. And that's why a lot of men don't approach women that are on their phone or have that technological barrier in front of them. So it's really important to put away the technology. It's so funny because I think that we all think that technology connects us, but in real life out there organically, it can disconnect us from people.
Yeah, that's so true. And one thing I noticed when you did that little demo with your phone and said, do I look like I want to meet someone when I'm like this or when I'm like this? You also flashed this beautiful bright smile, Suzanne.
Mm-hmm.
So just a little side note, and I don't know if I'm going to take away your next tip here, but smiling, making eye contact and smiling so you look approachable. I have one client, you'll crack up at this, Suzanne. She said, I realized I was out there giving people the death stare.
Oh yeah, and that doesn't make any man want to approach you, right?
Right, exactly.
It's so true too, because men, it's a universal opener is making eye contact and smiling. It doesn't matter what country you live in, what state you live in. A man actually looks for that eye contact and smiling because it says I'm friendly and I'm okay if you approach me. But if you just look like this, do I look approachable?
Not really, no.
Right? You're kind of like, yeah, I don't really want to approach her, like that death stare. But it's so true. It's so to really open up your energy in all those different ways.
Yeah, because a man needs to feel safe that if he does approach, he's not going to get rebuffed or rejected or his head bit off.
Well, yeah, and Michelle, you bring up a really great point because in this day and age of the Me Too movement is, which I think is great and I think is so important. It's also on the other side though, has scared a lot of men into, ooh, I don't know if I should cross that line. Is she going to take this the wrong way? So it's become even more important now to open up that door and flash that smile and make that eye contact that, yeah, it's okay to approach me, right?
Yeah, because men, they don't want to be perceived as that creepy guy.
Yeah, no one does, right?
Right,
So,
exactly.
and a lot of women don't realize that's the number one reason why men don't approach is they're afraid of rejection. And it's so funny when I say to my female clients, this is how a man feels. If I said to you right now, we're out and you see an attractive man and I say, go over and approach him, I always look at my client's face and they're always like, they don't want to because they're scared. And I'm like, yeah, that's how a man feels. So it's important to, and actually that's my third tip, is to open the door to conversation. And it's not about being masculine. It's not about pursuing. You're still staying in your feminine when you open the door to conversation. And how you do that is by just asking a question or making a comment. And once you open the door to conversation, is he will run with it if he's interested. But it's about opening the door and saying, hey, it's okay to talk to me. I'm open to it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, those are great tips. And I think in terms of opening conversation, I think that feels scary to a lot of women, just like it does to a lot of men. But I think that it's easy to ask someone a question or make a comment or pay a compliment, something like that. Those kinds of things can open up the opportunity for a conversation. And coming back to your first tip, if you're engaging in that way with everyone, you can get really relaxed and comfortable in doing that so that when it's a cute guy, you don't completely freeze up.
Exactly. And it's really funny because if the way to not get nervous about it is don't get tied to an outcome. Like, don't get tied to, I hope he asks me out. I hope he asks me for my phone number because, oh my God, that's a lot of pressure. If you just go in with the intent of, I have a question, that's it. And I just am looking for an answer. If that's your only intent, it takes so much pressure off of you. And then you're probably more relaxed and you become more open to the conversation and whatever occurs, right? Is don't put that pressure on you of this needs to happen. We don't know anything about him. I just want to see if he can answer this question.
Right, right. I think that's so important to create those opportunities, but not be attached to anyone's specific outcome in any interaction.
Yeah, because once you're tied to a specific outcome, I mean, what is the likelihood that that's exactly going to happen and how you have it in your head? Not, the chances aren't that great. So if you just stay in the moment and say, I'm just asking a question, that's it, then you'll be so much more relaxed. There's no pressure.
Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. Okay, so these are great tips, and we want to invite you to experiment with these if you're wanting to meet someone in person organically. So now, Suzanne, let's pivot, if you will, and let's talk a little bit about online, because as you mentioned, there's basically two ways to meet someone.
Yeah, so meeting online, I know, years ago, like 25, 30 years ago, there was that stigmatism attached to, oh God, I don't want to meet someone online. I'm embarrassed to tell people that. And I still run into some people that feel that way, but I just want to put everybody's nerves at ease because honestly, it's become the norm. It really, really has. And I will say probably 90% of my clients have met the person they're either in a relationship with or that they got married to online. So it really has become the norm. And so I really encourage everybody to open up the possibilities of meeting a quality man on an online dating site, because there's a lot of great men on there, on the different sites. And what I always say to people, because some people, Michelle, do you ever get this where your clients will say, well, it doesn't work. I'm not getting the responses. No men are contacting me, or are just men that I'm not even attracted to or would never date contact me. Do women ever say that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. Or they've tried it before and it didn't work and they don't want to try again, or all they attracted were the scammers and the weirdos, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but that's a part of online dating. But let's look at the good part, is there's a lot of great quality men on there. And what I always say to women that feel that way about online dating is that, you know, usually if you're not attracting quality men, or you're not getting the type of men that you would like to date on an online site, or you're just not getting any responses at all, is I always share this with women, and it's the truth. And it's that it's not the site, it's your profile, and it's the truth. And so if you're not getting the responses that you want, it usually means that Michelle or I need to help you revamp your profile, because I will tell you, every time I've helped my client with their profile, with the photos, the essay, and then contacting men, it always turns the whole situation around, where they start meeting quality men, they start getting a lot of likes on their photos, they get more dates, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're not getting any responses, it's first look at the profile. That's the most important thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And the
And I do
photos
this,
are
and
the
I
most
use,
important.
go ahead.
Oh, I was saying that the photos are the most important part, because quite honestly, men are visual. So that main profile photo is the most important photo you can have on your profile, because the next place he goes is to the second photo, and then the third photo. He won't even get to the essay if he's not attracted to you. That's,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. I always liken the photos to being like a headline on a piece or an article. If the headline doesn't capture your interest, you're not going to even read what comes beneath that. So your photos are like a headline on a piece or a headline on a video. If that doesn't capture your interest, you're not going to watch the video or read the piece.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why, you know, there's pictures and articles. It captures your attention. It makes you want to go and read the rest, right? And so
Hmm.
the photos are the most important. And sometimes when I've looked at somebody's photos, I see this beautiful woman, you know, if we're doing a call like over Zoom, like how you and I are, and I'm like, oh my God, this online profile doesn't even depict you as the most beautiful woman that I see in front of me right now. And so sometimes it's always better to have a third party that can help you with that profile, to shine you in the best possible light, because that's your ad, right? It's your ad for yourself.
That's right. That's right. Okay, great. So what's your next tip?
So the next tip is the essay, like how you talked about the headline. Is that first line in your essay is the most important. It's like, it's funny that you said that about the headline, because I always tell my clients that it's like a novel. If the first line doesn't capture you, you're not going to keep reading if it's kind of boring and generic, and it's just like anything else you could read on anybody else's profile. That first line should be something that really draws him in and says something that's unique about your personality. And so then it kind of says, oh, I want to get to know her a little bit more and go in deeper. And don't write just generic things. Like, I've had a lot of people write, oh, I like to do yoga, I like the beach, I like watching the sunset, I like traveling. And when you list off things like that, it's so generic that it could be Michelle, it could be Suzanne, it could be somebody else and somebody else. It doesn't say anything special about you. But when you go into more of a story format and telling more about something that you really love and why you love it, it draws people in, and stories connect people. When you just tell it in a list format or in commas like this, and this, it doesn't really connect people. But when you tell a story, someone will it'll capture his attention and it'll connect him to you, and you'll have one of those men are looking for, and we are too, is those what I call Me Too moments, where we go, oh my God, I love that too. She could totally get what I love to do because she does it too, right? So it's about telling that story about yourself in a way that intrigues someone.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yep. And I think there's it's kind of a show or a tell kind of a distinction here. With a little story or with sharing something in a way where you're sharing something you're really passionate about that's unique about you, you're kind of showing a side of yourself rather than kind of the lists where we kind of tell, like you said, I like yoga, traveling, the beach, blah, 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 the generic stuff that you see so often in profiles.
Yeah, it definitely helps when you tell stories and describe more about things that you like. Like, don't say, I just love to cook. And this is actually very key. It's funny. I just gave this tip to one of my clients right before this call. Is I asked her if she liked to cook, and she said, yeah, I love to cook. I cook amazing things. And I said, great. Well, don't just say I love to cook. Tell me one of your best dishes that you've ever cooked, because if I can visualize it and feel like I'm sitting at your table, having the most amazing, whatever it is, I don't know, pasta with truffle oil, whatever, that's going to draw him in. And quite honestly, I know it sounds archaic, but men love a woman that can cook. And you don't have to be this awesome cook, but describe one dish that you can cook. Everybody can cook one dish.
Right, right. Okay, great. So is there anything else you want to add to the online piece?
Sure. So one of the questions, it's funny, last week I was asking my tribe, what are the biggest things that are you having trouble with in online dating? And this came up, so I thought I'd add it to a tip. And I didn't even know this was a problem, but apparently it is. It's moving it from online to a date in person. And so I always give this rule of thumb is it should be 2 to 3 email exchanges, then a phone call. And some people like to have a phone call and some people don't, which I personally recommend that you do a phone call, because it can honestly save you a lot of time, because you'll find out a lot about someone on the phone, and it doesn't have to be a long phone call. And then it should move to a date. And I think the biggest issue that a lot of women are having is moving it from that phone call to a date. And obviously it should be the man to ask you out, but you can do it in a feminine way that invites him to ask you out and that you'd say yes. And so that you're not asking him out and you're still staying within your feminine. And what I always say to women is you can say, well, God, I would really like to continue this conversation. It would be great to meet in person sometime or over coffee. And so just throw it out there and see what he says. Because all you're saying is, if you ask me out, I would say yes. You're not asking him out. It would be great to continue this conversation. You sound really interesting, right? So
yeah, and I think sometimes that does need to be done by the woman, because again, we have men who might be a little bit uncertain or unsure as to whether you're ready for that step. They might be a little bit afraid to ask you out because there's that whole idea no one wants to be rejected or rebuffed. So by opening up that space and making it safe for him to take it to the next step, that can be really powerful. And Suzanne, you and I both know that men can get caught up in a cyber relationship that never actually moves to offline.
yeah.
And at a certain point, that's not a good use of your time.
No, exactly. And I hate to say it, but it's true. There are some men that really just want to communicate with you over texting, over emailing, whatever it is. And if you've dropped the hint 1 or 2 times and he still hasn't asked you out, move on. Because there are some men that will just kind of keep you in the loop so that they have someone to communicate with. And that's not what you're looking for, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and I also resonate and suggest oftentimes for my clients to have that phone call before having the date. And again, it doesn't need to be long. In fact, it's probably best that it's not real long. 15-20 minutes, you can find out a lot about someone. But I feel like for a woman, it takes a lot of effort to get dressed up, go out, meet someone, go for a date, I mean, that requires a time commitment. And if you find out in a phone call, you're really not a match. For example, I had a client recently who had a phone call. They'd been communicating a little bit online, had a phone call, and she said the sound of his voice just was like fingernails on the chalkboard for her. He just had this really high-pitched, kind of feminine sounding voice. And she said, I don't care what he looks like. I don't care anything else. I just can't be with him. He's just not going to be my man. So she found that out before she spent the time and energy of going out and meeting on a date. And, that's just an example of something that might happen. So it's kind of a buffer.
Yeah, and it's important to do that because you're right. Sometimes you may show up in person and you're like, God, I could have found this out on the phone, right? And I
Mhm.
didn't have to do my hair, my makeup, and get ready. So, but I will preface that with, don't look for something to be wrong with every single man you get on the phone with, because
Right.
sometimes I see where women will try to sabotage themselves by, oh no, he had this small thing wrong. And I'm like, that's not really a good reason not to go out on a date. So,
That's right. That's right. Because the flip side of this is that oftentimes you'll meet and you will find that there is a bit of a connection, or the attraction can actually grow. So there's a balance there.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Okay, Suzanne, do you have anything else you want to share about online dating?
Oh, you know what I do want to say, because I gave 3 tips organically, 3 tips for online dating, is the last tip, and this is overall, is to actually go out and do this stuff. Because listening to it on this video is great, but unless you take action, it doesn't work, right? So actually
That's
go
right.
take action.
Well, that's right. Suzanne, I want to thank you for joining me, and it was so great to have you.
Aw, thank you so much, Michelle. I really, really appreciate it.
Bye-bye for now.